Over the last several months, we've been diving into personal finance for women with Meridian Credit Union. In our last class, we touched on managing finances through divorce, but it's such a big topic, we've split it into two. In the seventh of our 8 classes, Teresa Valenti, Senior Wealth Advisor with Meridian Credit Union, is joining me today to share a few of the biggest financial mistakes women make through divorce. Welcome back, Teresa.
Thank you, Candace. Great to be here.
I honestly feel like I probably could have written this one. I've probably made every mistake, but let's try and go through them because you have a lot. So what's number one?
Well, I think that this one is most common for any of us who have gone through divorce, and that is making emotional driven decisions. So wanting to get out of the relationship, not wanting to argue or fight, or just wanting to wrap it up quickly can have big financial consequences. So my recommendation for having gone through this myself is to take a deep breath, take a step back, and give yourself some time, because that time that you give yourself will put everything in different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I do recommend that to people now. I say take at least 90 days to just sit on it and think about it, because you end up making mistakes when you're rushing it. What's the second one?
Assuming that the division of property is 50-50 is equal. So anything that's divided today may not actually be equal in the future. So overlooking future taxes, capital gains, present value, future value, and also the transaction costs of diluting those future assets should be taken into consideration.
This is a big one. The next one you have here on your list is huge. Let's get into the expenses.
Yes, underestimating your expenses. Think about your future expenses and add inflation into that. A perfect example is this year. So in January, the inflation rate was 1%. And in October, we're sitting at 4.4. So if you think about it, which was $1 in January, 10 months later is going to cost you over $4. So do not overlook the rate of inflation.
I don't actually, anybody listening to this should not be overlooking that. That is crazy to think about.
It is. It is.
All right. Next up, what else? What's another mistake we make?
Keeping the house and foregoing other assets. So while it may be nice to keep the house and not have to move, especially if there's children involved, may not be the wisest decision for future. So that the spouse that's going to keep the house will have to requalify for the mortgage. You will have maintenance costs as well as property taxes, and that could put the spouse that's keeping the home into a position in the future that may have a negative effect.
Yeah. And number 5, the next one on your list, I think this one's really important because people, even if your divorce is super amicable and you think everybody's going to be on their best behavior, word of advice, that doesn't always happen. So the next one is a big one.
Yes, is not understanding that any debt that is incurred while married is a shared liability. It doesn't matter who spent the money. So if you have joint credit cards, freeze them so that there's no further transactions on them, that they're payment only, and keep up those minimum payments. Creditors and lenders will not care if one spouse refuses to pay 1 month or if who spent the money. Keep up those minimum payments because you don't want it to affect your credit score for future qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if afterwards, your ex-partner might go out on a spending spree and you are on the hook for all of that joint debt incurred, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Tell me about defined benefit pension, how that not evaluating that correctly. How does that work?
So a lot of people do overlook this. So even though the employee cannot take the funds until retirement, it does have a value today. And the non-employee spouse is entitled to a share of that for the number of years that they were married. So hiring an actuary who evaluates pensions is definitely worth it.
Okay, number 7, I have to tell you, I did not think about this one. So you've got my wheels spinning today. So tell me about number 7.
So securing spousal and child support with life insurance and disability policy. So the policy should be held by the person who is receiving the child or spousal support, because you don't want those payments to not be paid. So the person who's receiving the payments hold the policy on the life or disability of the payer, with the beneficiary being the receiver.
It's such an excellent point. I am positive that a lot of women do not think of this one. So thank you for telling us about this one, because it's huge. Next up, what have we got?
Overestimating your investment returns. So when you are dividing the property, some of the assets that you may forego for other assets may not have the same value in the future. So, seeing a qualified advisor for some recommendations and advice on these investments, because they may not give the returns that you are thinking. They may not even make a return at all in some years. So it is good to always get the advice of a professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the financial advisors at Meridian Credit Union come in, is, just lay it all out on the table and have a very open, frank discussion about all of this, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Beneficiaries and the will. Also really important, but I think we often just don't think about it because we're so flustered with everything else.
Yes, and waiting, and in the event something would happen, you could inadvertently leave your spouse as the executor of your will and the beneficiary. So you don't want to do that. As soon as you are starting the process of separating and divorce, change those beneficiaries on those registered products, update your will and your power of attorney.
All right, number 10. This one's big, because when my marriage was over, all I wanted was, I don't care what happens down the road. I just want out.
Yes.
And you're not thinking about 10, 20 years down the road, right?
Yep. Consider your future and long-term security. So the decisions that you make today are going to have a huge financial impact on your future. So getting the advice of a certified financial planner or a financial divorce specialist to be able to transition you through planning from being married life into single life, and not only put more realistic expectations on what that is going to look like, but be able to put a sound financial plan together for you.
Yeah. And, these stats for women are really a little bit soul crushing. I remember reading this on the Justice of Canada website, and I've mentioned it a million times on the show. Women's income is affected, but for about 6 years after a divorce, your income will go down, particularly as a single mother. If you have custody most of the time, that's going to be effective. It will take you a long time to recover and come back up to that level of income, if ever. So future you really do need to think about and protect that, because it's so important.
You absolutely, exactly. Couldn't have been said better. Absolutely. That's true. And I think maybe when you do go through a separation and divorce, I think that you really, you have that experience, that you realize these steps are so important to cover.
Yeah, it's crucial. So if people want to actually go back and check out past ones, they can go to whatshesaidtalk.com to check out the previous ones we've done. But if they want more information from Meridian Credit Union, where can they go, Teresa?
Yeah, meridiancu.ca, where you can find us. We are also on Facebook and LinkedIn. So please contact us. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, incredible. Teresa, thanks so much.
Thank you, Candace.